What's going on, everyone? This is Mitch with SC Weather. Hope y'all been having a great Wednesday. We're going to talk about some things, and before I get going, there's not a whole lot to talk about. There's not anything set in stone looking forward. There's not any immediate threats, but there is some models we can look at to kind of get a feel on what's going to start going on next week, as I think we'll end up shifting to a new pattern that may help us get some wintry weather across the East Coast. Not just talking about the Southeast, but the Northeast, maybe a storm chance in the Mid-Atlantic. We're going to talk about what the latest models are showing for today, so we're going to dive into that. This is more of an update video, kind of what we're looking at, because there's not one specific storm to really talk about right now, one specific threat or anything like that. I will say this: Mississippi, parts of Alabama, actually had a good bit of sleet this morning. It was nothing significant, but it was a little bit of surprise even on my part. There was some energy down there that really ended up providing more of a lift than what I kind of thought it was and what a lot of people thought. But so y'all had some early morning winter weather advisories down there in Mississippi. I know a lot of you guys down there wasn't quite expecting that after y'all just got snow a couple days ago. But before we get going, if y'all haven't subscribed, we'd much appreciate if y'all do. Growth in these slow times is really huge for me, because there's just not a whole lot to talk about, but I know there will be in the next day or so for sure. But let's get deep into this. So this is the GFS, the latest one. This is the one that just came out in 18Z, the evening run. So as we've talked about, and this is getting into this weekend, it's going to be a chilly weekend across the Southeast and the East Coast. You're going to have a couple areas of energy that really flies through. It's almost like some clippers that really gets, I think it's going to really throw down a good bit of snow for the mountains. You're going to have about 2 or 3 different waves of snow in the mountains. Definitely good for ski country out there. Some northwest flows. So it's kind of isolated areas. I do think areas like Asheville, definitely Boone, Banner Elk, Blowing Rock, Roll Mountain, maybe areas of far northeast Tennessee. You could definitely see some snow, and maybe even some snow showers even in the area throughout Tennessee and Kentucky. It doesn't look as robust as it did yesterday, but we are getting into short range, and it does still show it. But maybe some flurries breaking out east of the mountains into North Carolina, maybe for Saturday. We'll have to watch, but then there's another storm system that comes up, but it gets knocked back down. And remember last video yesterday, I was talking about the storm chance for next week. I still think there is a storm chance, but the GFS has a different idea. If we could get this area to really fire up, it'll be all rain for the Southeast, but this could really become a storm system for the Northeast, but it never gets going. Instead, you get this big, huge storm, and take this with a grain of salt, because man, this is really far out. It's 216 hours out. Still next week, but it has a big storm firing up across the Midwest and delivering a pretty big storm for them guys. But as we get deeper in the run, and let me tell you, the 12Z run today, the lunchtime model for GFS, it brought big time cold air towards the end of the run. But let me tell you, the GFS is terrible with backing up cold each run. So what I mean by that is it'll show cold 300 hours out, and then the next run it'll still show it 300 hours out instead of a little bit closer. So you never fully get it into short range or mid range to where you can really start to say, hey, this is going to happen. That's always been a problem with the GFS, but 2 runs in a row now. It's not a lot. It's really starting to show some deep cold air towards the end of the run. And people have really been talking about a range from the 15th to the 25th for the Southeast to get a potential winter weather event. Well, you're going to pretty much knock out that earlier period. So I'm thinking sometime, maybe the end of month is the next threat. I'm not talking about a major winter storm. You can't really say stuff like that. But I think the next threat for the Southeast is coming, and I do think a big storm potential for the Northeast is coming towards end month. But this is a lot of cold air. You can tell there's a lot of cold air, and I'm going to show you the temperature anomalies here. But I do want to show you this. You get a good old fantasy storm popping up right in Texas, but look what this thing does. It gets going, and it produces a massive winter storm for the entire Southeast, just about. It includes us in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. This is a big-time winter storm, and then just bombs out as a coastal low and dumps heavy snow all the way to the coast of North Carolina and South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. It's crazy. But this is super far out, and it's just not reliable at all. But we need to keep seeing stuff like this because it tells us that maybe we got something to work with here in the future. Now, you look at the temperature anomalies. One thing that me and a lot of others are thinking is we have a chance to warm up briefly before the cold Arctic air gets through. Now, the Arctic air you're starting to see float around social media, that is not set in stone. We just don't know if it's going to happen yet. But the potential is there, and I don't know if we're talking about it so much that we're scaring it away, but there's still potential for us to have an Arctic outbreak here at the end of the month, mid to end month now. We're pretty much in the mid area of the month now, but as we're getting into this weekend, it's going to be a cooler than average weekend. Highs in the 40s, lows in the 20s for a lot of the southeast. Colder, obviously, in colder areas, climate-wise. But check it out. The GFS wants to warm us up as we get into the end of next week. This is what the GFS wants to do. Warms up for several days, but look at this. You got two battle of air masses. You got a huge pattern change. This is for next weekend, so about 10 days away. You got a big cold air mass bringing it down, and eventually it's going to cover up that area and get these above average temperatures. It's going to be a stiff change to below average temperatures. Now, guys, I'm going to say this 100 times probably in all my videos, but things could change so quick. This is really deep in the GFS, and it's not that accurate, but it is guidance, for us to really tell if something's going to happen. This is the European model, the latest one from today. Like I said, it shows the same thing with the GFS as far as them snow, but we're getting into next week now. Now the European is different with the GFS is for next week. It shows a storm, and it shows a legit chance of a storm, but it's a little bit better. It shows a little bit more cold air, a little bit more south, and it has more snow in places like Midland, Texas, and West Central Texas. It shows another storm for that area potential, but it's close. But this looks like a big-time mid-Atlantic storm as we get into late next week. If this was to happen, places like Washington, D.C., New York City, Boston could get into a big-time snowstorm potential. It's just one run. This is the same kind of time frame that showed a winter storm on yesterday's 12Z run for the entire southeast. So that's how much it changes, guys. But at the end of the run, it definitely gets pretty nippy. And I'll show you that here. Let's look right here. At the end of the run, it gets quite chilly as we get into late next week. You get below average temperatures. I mean, that's well below average temperatures too for the heart of winter, which is always mid to late January climate-wise for a lot of people. So it gets really nippy. Now you look at the European snowfall totals, operational runs, it reflects that big-time storm. But I tell you what, the ensemble runs are not picking up on any significant threat for the southeast right now. So that being said, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there's not a ton to talk about just because there's not one specific storm to talk about like we've been able to talk about this last few weeks, all the way from back in probably early to mid-December. I feel like the storm that really started off the train of storms was the nor'easter about a month ago, and ever since then we've had something to talk about until now. It's getting kind of quiet. But let me tell you something. This winter has already, especially for the southeast, I know it's been very snowless for the northeast since that nor'eastern, but for the southeast, really, it's been a pretty average winter, maybe a tick above average, but if you compare it to the last two winters, guys, it's not been that bad. The last two winters, we've already had temperatures in the 70s and 60s and highs consistently. Not this winter. It's been pretty nice. So, we just got to wait. We still got February. We still got half of January. So, I'm going to keep looking. And hopefully for you guys who like winter weather like I do, we can reel one in for areas who does not see it a lot. We've already had Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, chunk of North Carolina, a northern half of Georgia. Not really anybody in South Carolina, has seen it. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hopefully we have a little bit more to talk about here in the coming days. Y'all have a good evening.